Imagine your mind as an old, grand theater. The seats are velvet, worn thin by years of use, and the air smells of dust and cooling electricity. For the most part, the theater is quiet. You go about your day, moving through the lobby of your life, handling the business of the present. But then, without warning, the lights dim. A projector whirs to life in the back of your skull, its beam cutting through the darkness to splash a vivid, high-definition image onto the screen of your consciousness. It isn't a movie you'd ever pay to see. It's a highlight reel of your most agonizing failures. There you are, 5 years ago, saying the exact wrong thing at a funeral. There you are, in high school, tripping over your own feet in front of a crowd. There you are, yesterday, misinterpreting a joke and laughing just a second too long, the sound echoing awkwardly in the silence that followed. This is the cinema of regret, and in this theater, you are the only audience member, the only critic, and the only victim. You sit there, paralyzed, watching a version of yourself that no longer exists perform a mistake that cannot be undone. The question we must ask ourselves is why? Why does the mind, which is designed for our survival and well-being, insist on dragging us back to the scenes of our greatest embarrassments? Why do we keep replaying these moments until they feel like open wounds, raw and pulsing with fresh shame? Today, we are going to walk out of that theater. We are going to explore the mechanics of this mental loop, look through the lens of ancient wisdom to see why we cling to these shadows, and finally, learn how to turn the projector off for good. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand your cringe. You will have the tools to meet it with a quiet, steady peace. We've all felt it. That sudden, visceral jolt that hits you when you're doing something completely mundane, folding laundry, driving to work, or staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., waiting for sleep to claim you. It's called the cringe. It's not just a memory, it's a physical event. Your stomach does a slow, sickening roll. Your chest tightens. You might even make a small sound out loud, a groan, a hiss of breath, or a whispered no, as if you could somehow push the memory back into the dark. In these moments, the past isn't back there. It is right here, in the room with you. You find yourself litigating a case that was closed years ago. You analyze the look on a stranger's face, searching for the judgment you're certain they felt. You rewrite the dialogue in your head, coming up with the perfect, witty retort that would have saved your dignity. But the more you rewrite the script, the more the original version burns itself into your mind. This is the cruelty of the embarrassing memory. It robs you of the present. While you are busy being horrified by who you were in 2014, you are missing the person you have become today. You are treating your mind like a courtroom where you are simultaneously the prosecutor, the defendant, and the hanging judge. And because you are the one holding the gavel, there is never an acquittal. You sentence yourself to life in a cycle of rumination, convinced that if you just replay the moment one more time, you might finally find a way to make it hurt less. But the replay is the hurt. The memory is not the problem. The clinging times to the memory is where the suffering begins. Over 2,000 years ago, the Buddha spoke of a concept known as the 2 arrows. He explained that in life, we are often struck by an arrow, a painful event, a mistake, or a loss. This is the first arrow, and it is unavoidable. Life is messy, and being human means, inevitably, we will do things that are awkward, clumsy, or poorly judged. However, we then do something very strange. We pick up a second arrow and strike ourselves in the exact same spot, over and over again. This second arrow is our reaction to the memory. It is the judgment, the "I shouldn't have done that," and the "what is wrong with me?" While the first arrow caused a momentary sting, it is the second arrow, the one we fire at ourselves, that creates the long-term suffering. From a Buddhist perspective, this cycle of replaying memories is a form of time's upadana, or clinging. We cling to these memories because we have a mistaken idea of the self. We think that the person who made that mistake years ago is the same person who is sitting here now. We believe that if we can just solve that past embarrassment, we can fix who we are today. But Buddhism teaches us the truth of time's anicca, or impermanence. Consider a river. You might stand on the bank and call it the Ganges or the Mississippi, but the water flowing past your feet is never the same water from one second to the next. You, too, are a river. The you who said that embarrassing thing 5 years ago is gone. The cells in your body have turned over. The thoughts in your brain have shifted. The level of wisdom you possess has deepened. To hold your current self responsible for the actions of a past self is like blaming a grown man for the fact that he couldn't walk when he was an infant. The person you are punishing no longer exists. By replaying the memory, you are trying to grab a handful of water from a river that has already flowed out to sea. You are grasping at ghosts. To stop the replay, we must understand the difference between two very powerful emotions that often get tangled together: guilt and shame. This distinction is the key to unlocking the theater door. Guilt is a functional emotion. It says, "I did something bad." It focuses on the action. Guilt can be a teacher. It tells us when we've strayed from our values and nudges us to make amends or do better next time. It is a tool for growth. If you feel guilty about a past mistake, it's actually a sign of progress. It means you now have the wisdom to recognize that your past behavior doesn't align with your current standards. Shame, however, is a poison. Shame doesn't say, "I did something bad." It says, "I times am times bad." Shame collapses your entire identity into a single moment of awkwardness or failure. When you replay an embarrassing memory and feel that heat in your face, that isn't guilt trying to teach you a lesson. That is shame trying to convince you that you are fundamentally flawed. Shame thrives on the idea of a permanent self. It wants you to believe that your essence is defined by your lowest moments. But when we look through the lens of mindfulness, we see that an embarrassing moment is just a temporary arrangement of causes and conditions. You were tired, you were nervous, you lacked information, or you were simply trying your best with the tools you had at the time. The past self you are judging was likely just a person trying to survive, trying to be liked, or trying to navigate a world that doesn't come with an instruction manual. When we distinguish between the act, the mistake, and the actor, you, we create space. In that space, we can find the compassion necessary to stop the tape. We can acknowledge that the mistake happened without letting it define the totality of who we are in this moment. We can recognize that while we may have been the actor in that cringeworthy scene, we are now the author who gets to decide how the rest of the story is written. Now that we have drawn the line between who you were then and who you are now, we must learn the art of looking back without flinching. This is where we introduce the practice of compassionate reframing. To many of us, the word compassion sounds soft, perhaps even like an excuse for bad behavior. But in the Buddhist tradition, compassion, or times, karuna times, is a form of fierce courage. It is the willingness to look at suffering, including our own, without turning away in disgust. Compassion is not about telling yourself that what you did wasn't awkward, or that your mistake didn't have consequences. It is not about lying to yourself. Rather, it is about acknowledging the conditions that were present in that moment. Think back to that memory that makes you want to disappear. Now, instead of looking only at your failure, look at the environment. Were you exhausted? Were you desperate for connection? Were you operating out of a deep-seated fear of rejection that you hadn't yet learned how to manage? When we look at our past selves through the lens of compassion, we see a person who was trying to solve a problem with incomplete information. You were trying to be funny to hide your social anxiety. You were trying to be assertive because you felt small. You were a human being navigating a complex social web with the limited tools you had at the time. Imagine you are watching a video of a toddler trying to carry a glass of water that is far too heavy. When the glass shatters, do you yell at the child for being stupid or incapable? No. You see the disproportionate weight of the glass compared to the smallness of the hands. You see the intent, the desire to help or to be grown up, and you see the inevitable physical reality of the accident. You must start talking to your past self with that same clarity. When the memory arises and the cringe begins to tighten your chest, try a different inner dialogue. Instead of saying, "I can't believe I was such an idiot," Try saying, I see that you are trying so hard to be liked. I see that you were lonely. It's okay that you didn't get it right. I am here with you now, and we are safe. This shift moves you from being the prosecutor of your past to being the guardian of your present. You are acknowledging the pain without letting it harden into a permanent identity. You are giving that younger version of yourself the grace they didn't receive in the moment. By doing this, you aren't just changing a thought. You are changing the neural pathways of how you relate to your own history. You are teaching your brain that it no longer needs to punish you into being a better person. But how do we do this when we are in the thick of it? When you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., and that one specific thing you said 5 years ago suddenly flashes before your eyes like a neon sign. In those moments, the cringe feels less like a memory and more like a physical assault. The first tool is the practice of labeling. The moment the memory hits, your instinct is to dive into the story. You start reimagining how you could have said it differently. Stop. Instead, name the process. Say to yourself, this is a memory, or this is the feeling of embarrassment. By labeling the experience, you move from the subject of the movie to the observer in the audience. You are no longer times in times the cringe. You are times noticing times the cringe. Next, use the body anchor. Embarrassment is a physical event. Your face flushes, your heart rate increases, your breath becomes shallow. Instead of fighting the thought, turn your attention fully to the sensation. Where do you feel it? Is it a tightness in the throat? A heat in the chest? Breathe into that physical space. By focusing on the sensation, you rob the story of its power. Thoughts are abstract and infinite, but physical sensations are finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you stay with the breath 3 deep, slow inhalations into the belly, the physiological spike of the memory will naturally subside. Another powerful technique is the 5-year perspective. Ask yourself, in the grand tapestry of my life, does this moment truly define my character, or is it just a single dropped stitch? Most of the people who witnessed your embarrassing moment have likely forgotten it entirely. They are far too busy worrying about their own cringe reels to keep yours on file. You are the only one still holding the ticket to this particular show. Finally, practice the return to the senses technique. When a memory pulls you into the past, use the 5-4-3-2-1 method to pull yourself back to the room. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This grounds you in the only reality that actually exists, the present moment. The past is a ghost. The chair you are sitting on is real. Choose the reality that supports your peace. As we move forward, remember that your mind's tendency to replay these moments is actually a sign of your growth. You only cringe at your past self because you have outgrown that version of you. If you weren't a better, wiser person today, that old memory wouldn't bother you at all. The discomfort you feel is the measurement of the distance you have traveled. In the Japanese art of times, kintsugi, broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they are highlighted, making the piece more beautiful and valuable than it was when it was brand new. Your embarrassing memories, your failures, and your awkward stumbles are the cracks in your story. When you fill those cracks with the gold of compassion and mindfulness, you become a person of depth. You become someone who can offer true empathy to others because you have learned how to offer it to yourself. The goal is not to have a perfect past. The goal is to have a peaceful present. You are not the person who tripped on that stage, or the person who said the wrong thing at that party. You are the consciousness that is aware of those things, the vast open sky that allows the clouds of memory to pass through without being altered by them. Stop being the prisoner of your own history. The tape only plays as long as you provide the electricity of your attention. You can choose, right now, to hit stop. You can choose to look at that younger version of yourself, give them a silent nod of understanding, and let them go. You have learned the lesson. You have integrated the wisdom. Now, give yourself permission to leave the classroom. The sun is out, the air is fresh, and the present moment is waiting for you to finally arrive. Walk forward with your head held high, not because you have never failed, but because you are no longer afraid of the person you used to be. You are here, you are whole, and you are finally free.